the Mariners and the Cardinals were linked a lot at the trade deadline, right? Mariners needed bats, Cardinals needed arms. Both teams have young arms and young bats, respectively. So let's circle back to St. Louis. Let's look back at Busch Stadium and see who the Cardinals could give back in return if the Mariners were to give up a young arm. So here's what I've circled. This is trade number 1. The Mariners would send Bryce Miller and Michael Arroyo, infield prospect, top 5 prospect in the Mariners system, to St. Louis. And in return, they get Jordan Walker.
Now, in sense, this does sound like a pretty even trade. The Mariners are giving up a young arm with 6 years of control for a former top 3 prospect. He was top 3, right?
Yeah, he was.
So that seems to work out. You are giving away an arm to buy a bat. That's what you want. This is you trying to not only get a controllable bat, but to get a high upside bat who could play at the corners, because I think that's where his real strength is. You mentioned they tried throwing him out there in the outfield this year. Wasn't a really successful experiment, but in Seattle, the way this roster is currently structured, if he wanted to claim a corner and just start hitting, the Mariners would let him, and he could occupy the third base or first base and be a masher at a loss that you could easily take. Because if you sign Aaron Nola, love what Bryce Miller's done. Like, you don't really need Bryce Miller as much, and he becomes a little bit more expendable. And you can give Bryce to a team that really, really needs starting pitching.
So let's outline Walker's defense here a little bit. -14 outs above average. That's really bad. It's in the first percentile. The other part of that is Jordan Walker should not be playing the outfield. The only reason the Cardinals threw him out there is they said his bat is ready. We have to get him in the lineup. And he's a guy that came up as a third base prospect and as a corner infielder. You look at the Cardinals infield, and John Mozeliak and the Cardinals front office is saying, well, how in the world are we going to play him? We've got a Hall of Famer at third base and a Hall of Famer at first base, Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. And oh, by the way, we also have Nolan Gorman, who is an infielder. So they said, how are we going to play Jordan Walker? Well, let's try to put him in the corner outfield spots and see what happens. He has a good arm. Didn't work that well. If you move him to Seattle, then all of a sudden it opens up opportunities for him to play in the infield, because Eugenio Suarez, free agent after 2024. Ty France, free agent after 2025, and we will see how long he's on this roster. I'm not saying the Mariners would definitely move him. We've also talked about we don't think his roster spot is locked down secure next year. So at the very minimum for a year, Jordan Walker could play the corner spots. He could DH. If you had to throw him in the corner outfield for a game or two, you could. But it's a bat that has 5 years of club control and thunderous upside. Look, it's not a proven bat this second, but it is the idea that over time, especially sooner than later, with him being the prospect he was, he could be a masher in the middle of this lineup.
And this makes you think of the type of player Jerry wants. Young and controllable. If there's something he's been consistent on during this 5-year stretch he's had shaping the roster to his wants, young and controllable players are what Jerry shoots for. And that's what Jordan Walker is. I think our next guy doesn't quite hit the as young and as controllable, but man, I think it would be fun.
It would, and we're just about to get to him, I promise. The last thing I wanted to say here on Jordan Walker is a lot of people tab this guy as having a disappointing rookie season, quote unquote, because a lot of people picked him to win Rookie of the Year for just how exciting he was as a prospect. Well, sure, he wasn't Corbin Carroll. Put up a 116 WRC plus as a rookie. He hit 16 bombs. He had 37 extra base hits for a guy that was 21 years old. And by the way, got sent back down to the minors at one point. 116 WRC plus as a 21-year-old rookie? Oh, that's pretty good. If I were the Mariners, I'd jump all over that. And this is a guy that just mashed his way through the minors, even as a young kid. Put up a 936 OPS in 2021 through A-ball, low A, and high A. 900 with 19 bombs in 22 and double A. It's a 20-year-old. This guy can hit. This is a guy that you're banking on to continue to develop. It's not a proven bat this second, but it would make a lot of sense It's a really high upside bat. Mariners would have arms to give up. I think this trade could make a lot of sense for both sides.
Yeah, I think it would be a big impact, and that connection between the Mariners and Cardinals. We haven't seen anything really tangible to back that up because there hasn't been a trade like this, but I think a trade like this would really show that. I think this would make a big impact on the Mariners. I'm a big fan of your first idea here on the trade market.